Jack Torrance is hired to look after the Overlook Hotel over the winter period. Bringing his family with him to the hotel, he finds it an opportunity to work quietly as a writer. However, the malevolent spirit within the hotel and the sheer isolation drive Jack to mental degradation and derangement, putting his son and wife at risk. At the time of the film's release in 1980, it was met with a mixed reception, gaining 2 Golden Raspberry Award nominations for Shelley Duvall as Worst Actress and Stanley Kubrick for Worst Director. Despite the film's initially mixed reception, it has become reassessed and reclaimed as a classic of the horror genre and one of Stanley Kubrick's most popular works. Film critics such as Derek Malcolm, writing for The Guardian back in 1980, had stated that Nicholson's performance, even if deliberately over the top, still shouldn't encourage as much laughter as fear, nor should the final twists of the plot look so illogical. If The Shining isn't trivial, it certainly encourages one to think that it is. Pauline Kael, writing for The New Yorker back in 1980, had stated that we go to The Shining hoping for nasty scare effects and for an appeal to our giddiest nighttime fears, vaporous figures, shadowy places. What we get doesn't tease the imagination. These criticisms and the Golden Raspberry Award nominations imply that the performances from Shelley Duvall and Jack Nicholson are excessive and that the horror within the film is ineffective. However, these perspectives have not been shared with film critics and audiences in recent years, many having reassessed the film as an effective and popular landmark of horror cinema. The performance of Shelley Duvall as Wendy Torrance, Jack's wife, is still a contentious topic. Some viewers may still find her performance irritating to watch. However, the context of her character is that of the wife of a man growing increasingly dangerous. Her reactions reflect an intense fear for her own husband, a man she should be able to trust but no longer can, and fears for her own and her son's lives. This fear is also somewhat reflective of the audience's experience with the film. Wendy is a character experiencing the narrative firsthand. The audience, as passive participants watching a film and experiencing terror, can empathize with a character having to live said terror. Her seemingly excessive portrayal of fear is incredibly appropriate to reflect the seemingly excessive portrayal of derangement from Jack Nicholson's Jack Torrance. Jack Nicholson embraces madness. When Derek Malcolm said Nicholson's performance, even if deliberately over the top, still shouldn't encourage as much laughter as fear, in regard to his extreme performance, very few audiences found anything to laugh about with Jack Torrance. His performance ranges from the quiet isolations and uncomfortable 1,000-yard stares to intense bursts of anger and hate. For a character manipulated by malevolent spirits and driven to intense madness, how else is Jack Nicholson's performance meant to be portrayed if not with a terrifying excessiveness? Jack Nicholson's and Shelley Duvall's performances feel appropriate for the characters they portray and the scenes they must perform. Pauline Kael's criticisms of not feeling terrified by the film due to a lack of horrifying imagery that taps into our nightmares is subjective, but many would disagree. The film is filled with horrific imagery. The Grady twins inviting Danny Torrance to play with them, Danny's escape through the hotel's labyrinth, and of course the axe-wielding Jack Torrance tearing down the bathroom door to reach his terrified wife. The horror in the film is something mystical, appearing in quickly cut flashes that create a questioning impression as to whether it was real or not. The blurring of reality with Kubrick's adaptation with images such as the blood flooding the elevator, the surrealist image of a man in an unconventional costume, and even the final shot of the film are difficult to explain. Were these events and images ever experienced in a past reality within the hotel? What do they symbolize, if anything? Something unexplainable and unthinkable is often terrifying. The audience's imagination is certainly teased upon viewing this film, as interpretations that vary wildly are shared between fans, something which is embraced with the Rodney Asher directed documentary Room 237, in which fans dedicated to Kubrick's adaptations discuss incredibly varied interpretations and understandings of the images and ideas presented in the film. These varied interpretations interpretations and incredibly distinctive images adds an element of mysticism to Kubrick's The Shining, an aspect that feels almost unsolvable to the film's mystery. How much is Kubrick revealing to us regarding Jack Torrance's decline? In conclusion, despite initially mixed responses to Stanley Kubrick's adaptation of Stephen King's The Shining, the film has become embraced as a classic of the horror genre and is an accessible entry point into Kubrick's filmography. The film is a mystic enigma that feels almost unsolvable, inviting viewers to conjure their own interpretations with the imagery they are given.